Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's show, I've been waiting for quite some time for the series to develop, and of course, just put aside some time to take on such a monumental and beautiful piece of writing. Now, you guys may remember 02321's work from the Agent series in the woods. And if you enjoy that one as much as I'm sure you're going to love this one as well. But of course, as ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. Well, it really does help both the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story. And title: I Work as PI, Part 5. Let's get straight into that. My cell phone was ringing on my bedside table at 2 in the morning. I'd forgotten to turn it to silent when I went to sleep. It was rare that I would get calls from clients so late at night, but it did happen on occasion. And normally, I would let it ring and check the voicemail in the morning. And still half asleep, I looked at the number. It was Nick. He was a government agent that dealt with supernatural threats. I've been pretty useless on the 2 jobs we've already been on together. And yet, he still called me up, asking if I could join him on another case. I made a mistake and answered with the following: what's up, Snickerdoodle? Shit. Recently, I've been trying to think of nicknames to call him, because it seems as if he enjoyed them. I mentally made a list of names to use and rejected some which I would never call him, under punishment of dying from embarrassment. Due to my half-asleep state, I used a name from the wrong list. There was a long pause as I heard him whisper the word under his breath, and I heard the rustling of paper. Faintly, I heard a notebook close, and I knew he'd wrote down the nickname. I would never forgive myself for this. Putting aside the trauma, I listened to the reason why he called so late. There's a bit of an emergency. Can you be ready within 5 minutes? Bring warm clothing and a weapon, if you have one. Nick explained, not sounding fazed by the greeting. I was already out of bed trying to get dressed when he spoke. Whatever it was that was going down must be a big deal if he was rushing me out of the door. I wondered how dangerous this job would be. He never told me to bring a weapon before. Normally, I leaned on him to do all the heavy lifting. I wanted to change that though, so after the last case, I went out and got a handgun. I also went to the range a few times to practice my shooting, and made sure I gave the weapon all the respect it deserved. Honestly, it made me a little nervous just having it in the apartment. And if I didn't live alone, I would have bought a gun safe for it. Yeah, I can be ready. Where should I meet you? I asked. I'll come to your door, but I need your permission to use it. That was a strange thing to ask. I told him he could, and he quickly got off the phone. The new case brought danger, but I was thinking more about the payday that it would bring. No matter how much I worked, it didn't appear closer to my goals. However, my excitement faded when I placed my new handgun inside a side holster after checking the safety over 10 times. I had wanted to be a cop, but a private investigator was the best I could do. I was never aware of how nervous guns made me until after I actually owned one. I told myself it was just first-time jitters, and that I hoped it would fade. And just as I was tossing on my jacket, a knock came from my front door. When I opened it, a blast of cold air came through, along with snow. It was still spring, but closer to summer. There shouldn't be any snow. Nick stood on the other side of the doorway, but the outside was not my apartment building hallway. I was looking off at a snow-covered mountainside landscape. What the hell? I said slowly, wondering if I was still dreaming. The corporation is able to connect 2 doors together to make travel time faster. Nick explained, as if this was a common thing. I blinked a few times before stepping out into the ankle-deep snow. The wind nearly blew me off my feet, and I quickly zipped up my jacket. When I closed the door behind us, it disappeared even behind 3 long branches. 2 stuck in the ground and 1 on top, making it look like a frame my apartment door fit inside moments ago. Apparently, the doorways that could connect 2 locations together didn't need to be a real door. It just needed to look like one. It's not a long walk. I'll explain the case when we get somewhere warm, Nick said and started to walk away. I followed behind along a snow-buried road. I could only tell it was a road because of the pathway through the trees. Nick was only wearing his suit, along with a pink scarf that was flowing in the wind. How he wasn't cold was beyond me. I shivered, tucking my hands into my coat pockets while wondering if it wasn't too late to turn back. Another burst of wind stung my face, making my eyes water. How are you not freezing? I asked, trying to keep moving forward. He stopped and looked over his shoulder to watch how I jogged on the spot, trying to stay warm. And without a word, he took off his scarf to wrap it under my chin. The gesture made me feel warmer than the garment. The cold doesn't bother me, he said, and it looked true. His face wasn't even flushed. Okay then, Elsa. I chuckled. Nick turned his head slightly, not understanding the reference. I waved it off so we could keep on moving. The walk was under 30 minutes, but it felt like hours. My socks were soaked through, and I knew I was going to get sick from the walk. And the scenery would have been beautiful if it wasn't for the weather. Under the snow was a building I didn't notice at first. As it blended into the mountain it was built into. And Nick paused at a large steel door while trying to open it with a keypad next to it. I watched, shivering while looking around for any signs of life. When the codes Nick entered didn't work, he took out a black marker to write under the keypad. And with practiced skill, he drew a circle, then some odd symbols surrounding it. When he was finished, he pricked his finger to place a dot of blood in the center of the circle and symbols. And with a click, the door started to open and his writing faded away. Regardless of the danger that would be inside, I rushed into the building. Nick was right behind me as the door closed, shutting out the cold. Inside the building was dark, with red emergency lights flickering along the hallway. We stayed near the entrance so Nick could explain what was going on as I shook the chill from my bones. This is a research facility owned by the Hunters. They haven't told us much aside from that some sort of infection was released. It appears not to be spread by normal methods, and whatever is the cause is possibly supernatural in origin. There were 48 people still left inside the building. If we come across anyone, we shall assume they're hostile. Do not let them get close. I nodded along, listening as dread started to creep into my stomach. This was a step up from finding a lost girl or looking for a killer. This case was real secret government stuff. I let my hand touch where my handgun was holstered, but wasn't comforted by it as I hoped. Don't you think that this is a bit much for the two of us? I asked, sounding nervous. The red hallway looked more menacing with this new information. This was way beyond my skill set. I didn't know anything about infections or disease. It was a comfort knowing I wasn't exposed to some mystery illness just being inside the building, and the lack of other information overshadowed any positives. We shall have another team arrive in an hour or so. There is another emergency going on, so all the other agents are occupied. The Hunters trained to deal with this lab were inside at the time of the outbreak and are assumed dead. Right now, we are the only team available. Now, because I'd warmed up, Nick started to walk down the hallway. Inside the building, it was so hot that I needed to unzip my jacket to stop the sweating. He paused at the door, hand at his side, ready to strike if something came at him. And carefully, he opened the door to check inside the room. When nothing of interest was inside, he started to draw another circle, this time directly on the steel door. What's the doodling for? I asked as I watched him. It's a basic spell to keep the door locked. We need to check every part of the building and lock up areas behind us to ensure nothing goes inside after we leave. I'm not overly talented when it comes to magic. All the power for the spell is stored inside the marker. If you were able to draw the circle and the writing, then you could do the spell as well. Nick finished up his small circle to move on to the next door in the long, dimly lit hallway. Magic marker. Really? I guess if witches and trolls are real, a marker could be magic. I debated asking if other things are real like Bigfoot or aliens, but I knew it was not the right time for such a conversation. I stayed behind Nick as we checked inside empty rooms, on high alert and expecting to encounter danger at any moment. My nerves felt fried in just a few minutes. Every faint sound made me tense and look around, seeming to find nothing there. Nick didn't appear stressed, but his face never looked as if he was experiencing much of anything. My hand kept hovering above my holster, ready to draw if needed. I thought I was ready for this kind of case, but when the danger finally showed itself, I was proven very wrong. We found ourselves walking through a curved hallway while clearing rooms. When Nick went inside, I kept a lookout on the hallway. He was never gone for more than a few minutes, and so far I didn't see any signs of death or distress. The building appeared normal, aside from the emergency lights and lack of residents. Then I heard a sound coming from the room Nick went inside of. I was about to rush over to check on him when something else caught my attention. I had heard a groaning from a few feet away. Panicked, I turned my head to find the source. A man wearing a lab coat was shuffling down the hallway in an uneven gait. He bumped against the walls and nearly tripped over his own feet. I choked in fear after seeing him. His face, it was pale, and this man looked and acted like a fresh zombie. And for good reason. Out from his chest sprouted a bulb that was about the size of my head. I could see vines growing from the parasitic bulb going into the man's chest. When he raised a hand, more vines poked out from his skin, showing his entire body was infected with them under his flesh. I drew my handgun and prepared to fire, when more noises came from behind me. And 4 more of the infected were coming down the hallway. These men were dressed in SWAT gear from head to toe, with the exception of the heavy-duty vest, which had been removed to make room for the bulbs. I didn't know if the infection made them take the vests off or if they were caught before they were fully suited up. They groaned as they bumped against each other. I let out a yell of surprise when Nick came shooting out from the dark room. He didn't say a word. Taking off like a bullet, he attacked a group of SWAT men in a blur of motion I couldn't fully follow. His form, a graceful blur of attacks. I listened for the sound of his sword, but I didn't hear it. Instead of the delicate sword he normally used, in his hand was a thin line of black. It was a blade almost 4 feet long. It sliced through the men and their gear as if they were nothing. My stomach turned as they fell to pieces. It wasn't just my stomach. My head felt light and I almost fainted at the sight of 4 people being turned into chunks. The vines inside their bodies covered most of the gore, but I still couldn't look over them for very long. It was enough for me to forget all about the man wearing the lab coat as he shuffled closer. And I gasped, turning with my gun raised. He was almost within arm's reach, his hand raised and milky eyes staring without emotion. The bulb started to get bigger as his face hollowed out. I froze, watching as the man appeared to be drained, as the thing on his chest started to open. If I didn't pull the trigger in the next second, well, I would be dead. My finger twitched and yet I couldn't do it. I was unable to put enough pressure into that one digit to save my life. Nick was the one who saved me, yet again. He knew he couldn't get around me in time. Instead, he wrapped one arm around my chest to drag my body back and out of harm's way, as his other hand wrapped around my own, holding the gun. He was the one who forced my finger down on the trigger and took the recoil of the weapon as it fired. And with perfect aim, he fired 3 shots. 1 into the heart, the brain, and the bulb. Just when it looked as if the bulb would open, the bullets tore through the throat, and the man collapsed, and the bulb shriveled up, now dead, along with the host. And Nick released his grip. Without any hesitation, he went over to the fallen scientist to investigate the now dead bulb. He grabbed a hold to pull the dead plant from the man's chest, and slowly the bulb started to fade away inside of his hand. This bulb was created by supernatural means. I can absorb it to use it for energy like other magic-based things, but it must be dead to do so. I took care of a person inside the room, so we're down to dealing with. He paused, speaking, when his eyes landed on my trembling hand. I simply could not take my eyes off the dead man in front of me. Nick was speaking so coldly, and yet a man was dead. No, at least 6 people were dead. The logical part of my brain knew that these people could not be saved, and it was a good thing that they had been taken down, and yet my vision started to blur and I couldn't stop myself from breathing heavily. In my mind, I'd killed someone. I was the one who'd brought the gun, and now a man was dead. And when I dreamed of being a cop, I knew I would need to shoot at someone if my life was in danger. I didn't ever want to do something like that, but assumed I would be ready if the time came. That I would be working the streets and toughen up by the time I would need to draw a gun on someone. But when the time actually came, I froze. Then I had a panic attack after seeing the results. My mind was reeling in that moment. Any kind of logic and sensible thinking was tossed out of the window. My breathing started to come in short, hitched breaths as I was unable to take my mind off the body at my feet. All the insecurities I desperately tried to push down came flooding in. That I was worthless. That I'd brought my sister down by going after an impossible-to-reach goal. That I would never become a real. "Do you want to turn back?" Nick asked in a soft tone, cutting off my thoughts. "No, I can't," I protested. "I was the one who asked you to bring me along on the cases, and yet I act like this. I'm supposed to be your partner, and yet I haven't done a damn thing. My job is to support you, and yet I needed to stop speaking, or else I would really lose it. Shutting my eyes tight, I kept the flood of emotions back the best I could. While in the dark, I felt Nick wrap his hands around my own, that still tightly gripped my hang-on. I opened my eyes again to look up at him, a real expression on his face instead of his regular blank look. "Is this heavy?" he asked, referring to my hang-on. I nodded, so he kept speaking. "Weapons should be heavy. They carry the weight of all the lives you can destroy with them. It's been a long time since my swords became light, and I hate that. I need a partner who can still feel this weight. Until you're able to lift this on your own, I'll help you carry it. We are partners, after all. It goes both ways. I'm here to help you. You're not here to take on all the burdens on your own." I looked down, feeling a wave of embarrassment from his words. I'd gotten so freaked out seeing someone die for the first time, I didn't let myself think properly. Nick knew about my lack of experience when he asked me to come along. He'd always known, and yet he still wanted us to work together. I needed to keep reminding myself I couldn't do much, but the things I could do helped out more than I could ever realize. I nodded, unable to think of a way to respond. Mentally, I swore I would work harder in order to support Nick better during our cases. He pulled away when more groaning came from down the hallway. Any softness in his posture disappeared as he snapped back into action, ready to fight. A clicking sound from his hands made me look down. His new sword was a thin jet-black blade, and it collapsed out of a small handle the size of a lipstick tube. It looked more like a baton than a sword. "What happened to the orchestra?" I asked, wondering about the change in weapons. I got in trouble from cutting a van in half. This blade is named Eel. Despite its size, it can cut through anything. Eel is a good temporary blade, but it makes me nervous because it's too eager to cut through living things." The groaning died down, so Nick felt it was safe enough to further tell me about his weapon. The smaller blade was a better choice for this job. I've only seen the orchestra send out waves of destruction. I wasn't sure if it could tone it down. Here, we needed to take down people infected by some sort of parasitic plant, not destroy the entire building. "Skylar, I still do not know how this infection spreads. Please stay back and cover me. I'll protect you. Only fire your weapon if you are able. Do not force it and put yourself in a bad situation." I was going to reply in some sort of negative way. I still felt as if I was useless. Not only did he have to worry about plant zombies, but he also needed to keep an eye on me. And when he looked over his shoulder, he had the closest thing to a smile I'd ever seen. And all of those feelings faded. I kept a good grip on the handgun on my side, the cold metal feeling slightly lighter than before, now that I knew I was going to use it to protect my partner. And when we knew we were both ready, we started back down the hallway towards whatever was waiting. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. I told you it was an intense one. Absolutely chest pounding and totally refreshing. And from our good friend 02321 from over on Reddit, no sleep. Many chapters to this series, guys and girls, so I hope you bear with us as we try to get at least 1 or 2 a week up. Of course, as ever though, please do take a second to head over to the link, which I'll leave in the description box below. That'll take you over to 02321's Reddit profile, where you can definitely lose yourself for a good few hours with the awesome content of stories and poems. As ever though, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help both the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. A big welcome to all the brand new Cryptid Crew members. I hope you're enjoying the backlog of content. And we'll be trying to update that monthly as we get back into the swing of things and regular schedule. All you beautiful subscribers, keep your notification bells on as well. Plenty of live streams and re-listen parties coming up over the next few weeks and months as we try to engage with you more and bring back the old school feel of the channel. One big happy family, full of cryptid craziness and bad dad jokes. I hope you're all well and happy and had a fantastic week at work, school, or whatever it is that you do, and your family and friends are well. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.